Hello everyone, welcome in, welcome in. Before I change the scene, we're going to run through the songs that we listened to. So that was RX RPG by Andrew Holschultz, and two other songs by the same man, by the way. The second one was Psyche Surgery, and the last one was Depersonalization. They're all off of the Nightmare Reaper soundtrack. We basically just did a similar intro yesterday. I was kind of out of ideas, and I like these songs, so hence my picks. But if you'll just give me one moment to set things up here before I change the scene over. This can, I guess, go over there. Okay, I don't think we need this explicitly right now. Also put on some background music while we're here. So we got that going for us. And allow me to go over to this little screen over here. There we go. Should be able to see me now. And we are in. So, yeah, I had like a little go live tweet. And I don't know if this is going to be like a completely regular thing that we do going forward, always looking at the WarCom news, but we might. I'm also just going to self-promote in this little Discord over here while we're at it. I was thinking about it. I had written a thing, but I'm like, might as well do it, right? I don't think there's a lot of interests that match up in there with mine, but who knows? I mean, we're fans of the same people, so I guess it tracks. But there have been some interesting news coming out today as well. I mean, some of it is obviously just stuff that I'm not super into. We can look at pretty much everything that got released since yesterday, because it thankfully has only been a day. So let's take a look at it. I mean, one of them is literally just a picture. It's a rumor engine. Now, I mean, this is the Predator, obviously, with the arm blades. Much crappier version, non-retractable, clearly, but at the same time, it looks pretty good. Apparently, the sponsor is the Respectable Salvagers Nocturnal Consortium, not a secret society of HRUD. I wish to encourage all spacefarers to dispose of junk, broken machinery, and expired foodstuffs, yada yada yada. Yeah, so I don't know, they have some blurb here, but I don't actually think it necessarily means that this is 40k stuff. I would be surprised if it was. This looks a little bit more AOS to me, and in fact, I would guess that this is Flesh Eater Quartz, to be honest with you. But it's just a shot in the dark. I'd have to look at the... I mean, I guess we could look at it. You know what? Let's go on the Games Workshop like website for but a moment, because they have the new... Do they still sell the Ghoul King? He would be an abhorrent, right? Was he an Archregent? You guys know the model I'm talking about, I'm sure. I guess we'll have to find it on the Warhammer community thing. But it was such a long time ago, like 3 weeks. They probably released a million articles. Let me scroll back briefly just so we can take a look at the fingers. Now, obviously this is, the model that I have in mind is the Ghoul King on the actual throne, who looks really, really cool, by the way. The caveat that I have to give immediately to stop my own hype as well is the fact that a lot of those models, the ones that they just release as like special like store anniversary and celebration models and stuff like that, tend to be made by sculptors as like kind of a rite of passage, if you will. Yeah, Abhorrent Ghoul King. I don't know why he's no longer available. I guess he was a limited time release. But look at those fingers though. Like, that looks eerily familiar, doesn't it? Now, like I just said, a little sandbagging here, I guess, but it's doubtful that this design is necessarily going to be the Ghoul design going forward, but you never know, and if it is, then it does match with this. Now, over on this guy, we got just a loincloth and, like, two, I guess, like, ritual bones that he's wearing. There's definitely, you know, like an armband and stuff, like a bracer thing going on here, which is not bad by itself, but it remains to be seen. But my guess is still going to have to be... It's absolutely Flesh Eater Quartz, dude. It absolutely is Flesh Eater Quartz. This is like just, you know, a shot in the dark. The rumor engine stuff is so weird because I'm pretty sure someone has an image compiled somewhere from like the last 2 or 3 years worth of rumor engines, and a lot of them still have not been spoiled. We've still not seen a lot of those released, which is kind of insane to think about. But this is a much, much more interesting article, especially with all the AOS stuff that we've been discussing the last couple of weeks, I feel. So, Beasts of Chaos can spring an ambush with their entire army. Sounds pretty exciting. Little blurb here, you know, Dawnbringer Crusades are still a thing. the forces of order are still sallying forth from the cities of Sigmar, trying to capture new lands and find new cities, essentially. Not just find, but also found, I guess. So, pretty much, we got one of the rules spoiled, which is Beast Herd Ambush. Now, this is basically an army rule, from what we can understand here. Let's just actually look at the rule itself here. So, Beast Herd Ambush, during deployment, instead of setting up a Beast of Chaos unit on the battlefield, you can place it to one side and say that it is set up in ambush as a reserve unit. At the end of your first and second movement phases, you can set up any friendly reserve units that are in ambush on the battlefield, wholly within 9 inches of the battlefield edge, and more than 9 inches from all enemy units. At the start of the third battle round, Beast of Chaos units that are still in reserve are destroyed. Add 1 to charge rolls for friendly Beast of Chaos units that are set up on the battlefield in the same turn. So there's a lot here. If every single model gets this, which most army rules work that way, you'll notice one thing, and they also, the article's headline hints at this, but also the rule itself is phrased like this, and then there's this paragraph over here, which starts with, a canny beast lord can forego deployment entirely, leaving opponents bamboozled until a feral throng lunges from the woods, with a tasty charge bonus. Excuse me, that was my phone going off for some reason. I think it's because I posted a bunch of stuff on Instagram, because I realized after talking about it yesterday that I haven't posted there in 6 months. So I have now posted half of the models that I painted in half a year, which was just 3. It wasn't very productive. There were big models, to be sure, but they're not fully done. So, but we can get into that later. But the point of this rule is, there's no limitation on the number of models. Well, number of units that you get to put into reserve. So this isn't Scions of the Storm. This isn't 1 for 1. This is literally any unit you want to put in can go into reserve. And in fact, you are actually getting a huge benefit, not just because you're off the table and untouchable, but also you are going to get +1 to charge rolls. Now, you don't get to pop up anywhere with this rule. Some units, some models might have special abilities that allow them to pop up, like, away from the table edges. But right now, from what we can see, you need to be within 9 inches of a battlefield edge and more than 9 inches from all enemy units. So while this is powerful, it's not quite like total deep strike. There are parts of the board that you will be unable to reach with this. I mean, realistically speaking, we can do some calculations. So if we're looking at it from short table edge, basically, which is 44-inch now with the new, but it's not really new anymore, table size. You gotta be like 9 inches, within 9 inches of those, table edges, basically. And you have to be more than 9 inches away from the enemy. So pretty much if you go from the corner, because everything else is basically blocked out, then, you have like, and I guess we can look at your threat range as well. Like, you can at most charge 12 inches based on what we know so far. Maybe they might have some units that have like a larger threat range, but we don't really know yet. So pretty much, you're going to be able to reach something 21 inches in from the table edges on all sides with a max roll on the charge, which is a little bit easier for you to do as the Beast of Chaos player because you get +1. So technically an 11 already gets you there. I mean, that's pretty good, but that still leaves, a pretty big chunk of the board wide open. Now, of course, the interesting part about this rule, which I think makes it really, really fluffy, is the fact that you're kind of safest if you go into the center of the board, but at the same time, that just means you can get completely surrounded, which is exactly where the beast would want you. So this is a great rule. This is a fantastic rule. A friend of mine posted it in the Facebook group that I manage, and I already expressed my feelings there. I was like, yo, I'm so happy to see that ambushing is going to become, once again, like the central mechanic of Beasts of Chaos. It's always historically been what they do. They don't tend to do the whole, here's my army marching up to you very nicely and in a noble manner so that you know who's killing you. They're more, like anarchist goats that are just like popping up, nothing personal behind you and just murdering you with a giant fuck-off axe. And it's fantastic. It gets the message across. Very, very good rule. They also spoiled a bunch of other rules, and I'm kind of hoping tomorrow we get some Gits rules spoiled. Unfortunately, I won't be able to stream tomorrow, which is a big shame, but it is what it is. I mean, it was a 50-50 which army was going to get the rules today, and I guess we flubbed that roll because it's Beast, but at least the rules that they revealed are really good. So they mentioned that a great mass of gores are at the heart of every beast herd, and they can make a well-timed ambush into an even more decisive gore stampede. When a big enough warband of gores lands a charge, they'll stun an unlucky enemy into striking last on a roll of 3 up. Now this is incredible. Like, listen to this. We've already kind of gotten the effect spoiled with that paragraph, but here's the actual rule text. So at the end of your charge phase, if this unit made a charge move in the same turn, you can pick one enemy unit within 1 inch. If this unit, 1 inch of this unit that has fewer models than this unit, and roll a die. On a 3-up, the strike last effect applies to that enemy unit in the following combat phase. That's frankly amazing. That's really, really good. Now, obviously, there are some limitations here. You gotta have more dudes in your unit, but when you think about AOS, a lot of the models, well, a lot of the units you tend to see actually are like 5-man units, and Gors have historically always been 10-man units. Now, normally a rule like this wouldn't really get people going that much, but especially combined with the Beast Herd Ambush, it makes it into like a force to be reckoned with. Because think about it, the big problem with a unit of 10, like multiple small units, was always going to be some dude with like the most minimal amount of shooting decides to just throw some dice at you, takes you down to like 5 or just 4 models, and you're kind of screwed, because your Gore Stampede is never going to proc. But when you're coming off of the table, there's a very high chance you're going to be able to actually stun stuff. And keep in mind that you're basically going to have like a synergistic effect with this, because ideally you can sick a monster and the Gores on one enemy unit. The Gores like stun them, give them strike last, and then the monster just goes ham and eats all of them. The only thing that could be really frustrating is going against dudes that have decent shooting and then do unleash hell on you and potentially take you down, low enough that you will no longer be able to actually trigger this effect. But at the same time, a lot of the units with really good shooting tend to be, worse in combat. So that is something to consider. There's a pretty good chance that you might, in fact, still be able to stun kind of anybody with this, which is nice. Other people have pointed it out. I don't know if this particular image has them in it, but the other image that we saw had the Slangor Fiendbloods in it. And so we kind of knew in advance that they were going to be in this book in some way, shape, or form, and apparently they're going to behave slightly differently from what I understand. I'm not quite sure, but I'm pretty sure this is different than what we've seen with Slangor Fiendbloods. I mean, I can literally check, and I will, because I don't want to make a total ass of myself. I should probably check this before I got live, to be honest with you, but I didn't get the time to do it. So, obviously, the Slangor Fiendbloods are normally in Hedonites. They were released with Hedonites, and most people were not really, completely crazy about them, basically. Now, the Slangor Fiendbloods in Hedonites also have a rule called Obsessive Violence, but the rule that they have there is apparently, at the end of the combat phase, pick one enemy unit within 3 inches of this unit, and roll a die for each model in this unit. For each 4-up, the enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound. So your unit of 3 is doing an average of like 1.5 mortal wounds at the end of the combat phase. That's not really good. That's not particularly inspiring. It's kind of nothing at the end of the day. Apparently this one, so apparently they were also given an extra attack and damage 2 on everything. So that means that they're going to have 4 attacks. If they have the same stat line, 4 up to hit, 3 up to wound, -1 damage, but 2 damage. So they've given them quite a lot of extra damage. It remains to be seen what they'll do with the Gilded Weapon, because that was already +1 damage and the same stat, so maybe they'll go to damage 3 with another attack. Although it had fewer attacks, but I guess it would have too few attacks now, because the Razor Sharp Claw would now deal 4 attacks, whereas the Gilded Weapon base only deals 2. But I guess he gets both, from what I understand. Yeah, the unit leader got both of those. The unit leader was kind of the actual star of the show with this. Either way, this is a different rule, obviously, that the Beasts of Chaos Slangor Fiendbloods are going to have. And this particular rule is, once per battle in the combat phase, after this unit is fought for the first time in that phase, you can say that it will continue its obsessive onslaught. If you do so, this unit can fight for a second time in that phase. The Strike Last effect applies to this unit when it fights for the second time. We've seen a lot of similar rules to this, actually, over the last couple of releases, so more and more units are now getting conditional once per game fight again kind of rules. And in this case, they have the same restriction, where basically the second time they activate, they're going to have to basically strike last. Now, there's a lot of ifs here, but obviously with the boosted damage and boosted number of attacks, this could actually be pretty good. It's certainly going to be better than the Hedonites version of Slangor Fiendbloods. The big question is going to be whether or not this War Scroll will get ported over to Hedonites, or if they're going to keep them separate. I don't really know yet. I think it would be ideal if they just, took these ideas and put them back into Hedonites. Like, just for consistency's sake, and also because this is just straight up better than what they came up with for Hedonites. But that's not all. We mentioned the Ungor Raiders before, when we were talking about the Vanguard box. And apparently they have a special rule called Hidden Volley. Now this is really, really interesting. So apparently the Hidden Volley will keep your enemies from getting too comfortable around the battlefield edges, because once per game, these goat-faced guerrillas get to shoot from reserves, softening up bewildered foes. You can even set them up in the same turn, meaning that they get to shoot again in your shooting phase. Talk about a hail of arrows. So what is the Hidden Volley special rule? This is again once per battle. So once per battle, at the start of your movement phase, if this unit is in reserve, you can pick a point on the battlefield edge and say that this unit will unleash a Hidden Volley. If you do so, this unit can shoot in that phase, but it must target the closest enemy unit to that point. If more than one enemy unit is tied to be the closest, you can pick which unit is the target. Pretty interesting rule, all things considered, actually. Now, we mentioned earlier the threat range with the charges. So your threat range is basically going to be, at the minimum, you're going to have like a 1-inch size base. Basically, you're coming up 9 inches from people that you can actually reach, and then potentially you can, but you can come up 9 inches within the table edge and then charge. Say, basically, it's 21 inches if you're going to be charging. Now, for the Ungor Raiders, what I would like to check is what is the range on these guys currently? I want to say it's probably 18 inches, but let's see. Obviously, it might get adjusted with the new release. We don't really know yet. But again, this is pretty interesting. And also the fact that they do this when they're not on the table. We haven't really seen that before. It's kind of a little bit weird, but it's definitely an interesting idea. Yeah, right now they're 18-inch range, just one shot each, 4-up, 4-up, no rend damage 1. Normally they would get +1 to wound for shooting attacks if there's 10 or more of them in the unit, which again could be interesting. I do wonder if their rules would actually apply to the Hidden Volley attack. We don't really know that yet, but yeah, this could be definitely interesting. It also means that there's a reason to actually have the Ungor Raiders come in from reserve, which is a pretty big deal, because currently they have like a pre-game move that they can do, which is very helpful, obviously. It's a very useful ability, but it would be weird to keep that and then have the whole army basically strike in from reserve. Apparently, there's also going to be some other stuff. There's apparently some new Rituals of Ruin, but we don't really know what those are yet. I think it was in this image that people originally spotted the Fiend Bloods, but I could be wrong. Can't remember by now. But all in all, Beasts of Chaos are shaping up to be really strong. Now, the big question that hasn't been answered yet, obviously, is whether or not they're going to be able to still benefit from the Hearthstone, and, well, more so if the Hearthstone is going to do the stuff that it does currently. And right now, we don't yet know that. We genuinely have no clue. In case you're not aware, the Hearthstone currently on basically Battle Round 3 improves the rend of every single Beast of Chaos unit by 2. So the Ungor Raiders that we mentioned in close combat would be just rend -2. All of their actual combat units would potentially be rend -3 or even -4 in some of the nastier cases. Basically, late game, you don't get saves against Beasts of Chaos, is currently the way it works. And it has made them one of the strongest armies in the game, because it can even, like, this kind of a rule, improving your own rend, can combat safe stacking, which is a very unique capability right now, because no other faction can really do that. If someone really wants to protect, like, a 2-up or 3-up save unit, they can just spend the CP to do it, and Beasts kind of don't care about that currently, which is a very interesting thing, and it has made them a very, very competitive choice. But we'll have to see if that, Hearthstone rule actually survives the transition into the new book, and more importantly, if it's going to be something that they need in the first place, because obviously a lot of the War Scrolls might get, looked at. Now, there's a Necromunda article, and I genuinely don't even know, what this is all about. I briefly spoke about Necromunda before, and frankly, I have no idea what it absolutely is. It seems like, the dev team behind Necromunda are really having a good time, which I'm very happy to see, because this is a free rules PDF. Now, because I'm completely out of the loop with the rules, I'm not even going to look at it, because I probably wouldn't even know what to make of it. But it is really nice, in my opinion, to see, free DLC, essentially, for these games, when most of the time you're going to pay for anything and everything. So, really, hats off. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And another piece of big news for AOS, and one that kind of tugs at my heartstrings, and I can get into why in a second, is the announcement of the Warhammer Age of Sigmar organized play Battle for Glory and prizes at your local store. So apparently they're making a kit. They originally made these kind of competition kits for the box games, such as Kill Team. I think they did a couple for Warhammer Underworld. I don't know if they ended up doing some for 40k, I can't remember, but they probably did like a few months ago. But now it's AOS's turn. And you can see the contents here, basically. You get like a nice glass trophy. I think there's a better picture of it somewhere, yeah, at the bottom. So we'll take a look at that in a sec. But you get a nice glass trophy. You get a bunch of, I assume, objective markers or command point markers. It's up to you to decide. I would use these as CP markers at best, because for objectives you should definitely use the appropriately sized pipe plates, whether they're transparent plastic or neoprene or whatever, it doesn't matter. Just use something that makes it way easier to see whether or not you're in the, like, in/on the objective. You also get a bunch of various terrain markers, which is actually useful. Most players don't have access to these, so this is rather useful. I find it odd that they decided to go with 6. Like, no repetition, for a number of reasons, because on your average competitive board there are 8 terrain objects, you know, like terrain pieces. So it's kind of strange that they put 6 of these on that little leaflet there, I guess. Only 1 of each, so I don't really know how that would work. I guess the idea is you'll probably give more than 1 to your players, but it's a neat idea. I just wish the execution was a little different. But at least they're pretty big and legible. You have like a custom, I assume, poster that you could put up at your store to actually announce the name of the tournament. You have a best painted, like, diploma, I guess. You got first, second, and third place. And I assume that might be like a short form rulebook. I'm not quite keen on that, but it's nice to see. So pretty much this is good. This is actually pretty wonderful. These like objective markers / CP markers look pretty good. They're just cardboard, obviously, but still the sentiment is nice. And I mean, of course, you get the potential store champion like trophy over here, and it doesn't look bad. It certainly doesn't look bad. Now, I checked the participating stores. Unsurprisingly, most of the US stores are taking part in this. Obviously, all of the Games Workshop stores in a lot of places are taking part in this. Unfortunately for me, and this is a self-dox, I live in Hungary, there are no stores participating in this whatsoever, which I find kind of surprising, and this is more the heart-wrenching part of it that I wanted to get into, because I had mentioned it before, but back in the day I used to have my own tabletop gaming store, but I closed it in 2020, not due to the pandemic at the time, just to clear that up, basically. But, you know, I never got to do anything with this. I held, I want to say, a couple Age of Sigmar events, probably just 1 tournament during the course of maybe 2. Yeah, I actually think I did 2 AOS tournaments and just like a couple game days. But either way, I did a bunch of AOS events and a bunch of 40k events, but I never had official support in any way, shape, or form. I was never able to purchase a box of stuff to, you know, just gift to my players, essentially. I always had to take care of that by myself, and you can do that. It's not that difficult, and oftentimes you'll come up with better prizes than what's in here, but it's kind of nice that there's a lot of stores that can just get access to this now. So it brings a little tear to my eye, because it's kind of interesting, you know? It's nice to see GW actually supporting organized play and competitions and tournaments, not just with the rule releases that they've actually been pretty on top of, but also with actual organized play kits. So, honestly, pretty good stuff. And I mean, hey, because it's only been 1 day, we've actually seen everything. We've literally read it all, and that makes me really happy. So what I'm gonna do now is I am going to change the scene. Let me take you on over to here, and I will move the webcam though, because we're gonna continue building and cleaning and doing all of the various things, because that's what we want to do. I haven't done much stuff off screen. As you can imagine, I was basically just busy with work, and then now we're back again. But yeah, so with that out of the way, allow me to do one last thing though. Let me just muck around here a little. I want to change the name, well, not even the name, but the stream title. Alrighty, because we're no longer doing the WarCom news show, obviously, that's done and dusted currently. So So I haven't made a ton of progress since yesterday. As I mentioned, I basically just had work stuff that I was mostly taking care of, but now we're back, and I do want to continue, because again, the amount of time that we have for this is taken by rather fast, so ideally we would like to actually make a ton of progress, if at all possible, and we're going to try to do that. Now, in terms of what we'd like to do currently, we have sliced the arms off, if you remember from last night, so his shoulders/arms have been liberated, but not the knees and toes. And we'll be probably gluing those on if we can figure out the best way to go about that. We might bust out the green stuff for that and already do like a little bit of structural goodness, but it will remain to be seen. Not quite certain yet if we'll do, or you know, if we'll try to procrastinate even further, but we're gonna try. We're gonna try a little bit, I suppose. But there's a couple things we didn't clean last time. So we have this bell that I find really, really funny. I had a lot of difficulty getting this to glue together, so I don't know if this is cured. This is like the one thing that I worked on off stream a little. I tried to clean it up and then realized it wasn't fully glued together. And then I glued it back together, and then it turned out it still wasn't completely glued together. So before stream today, I glued it together. And I'm hoping it'll actually stick now. It's a very like small little contact point along the sides. So I hope that it'll work eventually. But we gotta build the hands, and one of those hands is gonna be rather difficult. Lucky for us, based on what we've seen so far, we might be able to just use these hands, like the way they are currently, to actually set up the idea that we have. Because I mentioned before that we want to use this brass rod, probably a shortened version of this, to make a rope. We might get rid of the chains here entirely, but we'll decide later. To put this thing on, basically, and he's just going to be waving this around like a fanatic, a ball and chain, essentially. And lucky for us, he's got a hand that's just like almost fully closed, holding a net, so we can use that if we move the wrist and green stuff some stuff to actually hold on to the rope, and his other hand is holding on to like a big club. Now we're going to carve the actual club parts out of his hand entirely, and we might be able to move the fingers a little bit, so that essentially it's going to be like that. So he's clasping his hand over his hand, well, one hand over the other, to basically hold on better. And then, you know, the rope will look perfectly in place. Is the hope, at least. But we'll see if we can pull that off. Kind of remains to be seen, obviously. So we're going to try. We're going to absolutely try. And do our best, but, you know, it remains to be seen if we'll be able to properly pull it off. But let's get into it. I mean, we got a lot of stuff to work on still. This has also been glued together. The gap filling part of it didn't work so well, but that's fine. We have other stuff for that. I'll move this away for the time being. I'll probably get started on the net over here. Now the interesting part is going to be whether or not we can actually slice the net out of here without damaging the fingers and stuff too much. I think it should be possible. The one thing we got to be careful for is one of the fingers is mostly connected to the rest of the hand by the net itself. So it's a good net, but I don't think we're going to be bothering with it, to be honest. Like it looks decent, but I just don't see myself screwing around with it, you know? So I don't think I'm going to be particularly nice in cutting this off. We're just going to get rid of it. Let's get started with that. These are kind of the only hands that we have left currently. Which incidentally means that we don't really have a lot of options on our table anymore. And that might be okay, to be honest. That might be 100% okay. Maybe we could also leave this in the center. Trying to see, we'll probably have to do like a pretty big amount of drilling if we intend to put something in here, especially something of this width. I mean, we'll see how that goes. We'll decide, but the parts of it that we know we don't actually want is basically all the stuff here. There's some cool little like pieces of detail here, but again, we don't care that much. We also don't care about this tangled mess over here on that side. And I think I think we're mostly safe to cut these pieces off too, because they're just going to be in the way later. This is definitely the messiest Mega-gargant that we're working on. I have kind of figured out the pose right now, but it's very hard for me to explain what I'm actually looking to do with it. So you'll basically have to trust me. Ideally, once we get to a point where we can actually, put the arms back on in any way, shape, or form, mess around with the hands, and glue those on, you'll probably see the idea that I have for the legs, and especially the feet. But currently, based on what I'm imagining, this might be one of the only Mega-gargants in our current, army concept, I guess, who will not necessarily need to have his legs repositioned. I still might do it. If I think it would look cooler. But I think this is the only occasion that we could get away with the basic pose. It would work for this guy. And his giant weapon and his very vastly changed arms would probably grab people's attention away from that. And also, the basic pose is not completely awful. It's more so that it's bad when there's 3/4 of them. It just doesn't make sense at that point. And, we don't have to worry about that currently, because we only will have the one guy, if everything goes well. So, that's the hope currently. So we're gonna do our best to clean this whole thing up, and just see what we can achieve. Now, even the fingers will need a little bit of green stuff, obviously, because a lot of the net parts were covering bits and pieces of the fingies. So it turns out we're gonna have to rebuild those because there's just nothing underneath them. There's nothing underneath that net texture, so. But that's not that difficult to actually do. So I'm not greatly worried. But yeah, more AOS stuff. I'm really looking forward to the Gits reveals tomorrow. I can tell you that for a fact. Even if I won't get to talk about them on stream. But I'm very, very curious what they'll decide to reveal. The War Scroll cards, somebody was saying, and I probably guess, I guess I should have looked at them a little bit more closely, but apparently the War Scroll cards have a couple of spoilers for abilities. And I guess, while we're here, I just pulled them up on my screen over here, and we can, look at it. Yeah, so they have a couple new effects over here. There's Funger Entangled, which is new. There's a Pet Gribbly Squished ability. Squiggler was already an ability in the current book. Sneaky Distraction is also a spell in the current book. Curse of the Spider God is also a spell. There's Petaled Potion, which I think was a rule already. There's also Nasty Poisons, and Drenched in Vomit is actually the interesting one, because I assume that's going to have to do with Trogs. So that has me excited. That definitely has me excited. But we'll see what those actually end up being. I'm very, very curious, for sure. I mean, we really do need to just clean off, the net from this as much as we can. Kind of knew that this would be the toughest Mega-gargant build. Perhaps it's good that we left it till last, but at the same time, there's a part of me that's like, man, I kind of wish this would already be done. Because the other two were so easy to build. Shouldn't complain, this hasn't taken that much longer so far. It's just that usually when we were, this invested in the other ones, time-wise, we could already kind of see the end of the tunnel. And here we're very much still in the dark. Doing some, I wouldn't necessarily say difficult stuff, but a lot of minor detail. Even once we do all of this, such as these fingers, we're not gonna be that much closer to the finished product just yet. So we gotta be patient in this particular case. There's no other way, essentially. And obviously, we'll have to be cognizant of the fact that we might have to do a lot of green stuffing on the hands as well, which makes sense. We'll probably have to build both wrists completely anew. Okay, so this is mostly missing the net now. I guess the question will be, do we want to remove the center and risk, like, taking this whole thing apart? Maybe not. Maybe we're okay with that. Maybe we can leave that in place and just, like, clean it up the best we can. That's gonna be interesting, though, with that one. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. There's like a part that might turn into the Endless Void a little. But we'll see. I'm actually going to also clean off the sprue gates, because we haven't really touched upon those yet. Incidentally, a lot of them were on the net, so we've made our life a whole lot easier by cutting away a lot of this stuff. Kind of lucky like that. I hope you've been doing okay. I know it's only been one day, so maybe there's not a whole lot that has happened in your life. There certainly hasn't been a whole lot happening in mine, so I can't hit you with the super exciting stuff. It's just been one work day, just one very routine day. I haven't done anything exciting. I guess the resurrection, if you will, of my Instagram account might count as something vaguely exciting, but it's really making it sound a lot greater than it actually is. I mentioned it yesterday, and I figured, so like, let me let you in on my thought process here. The reason I hadn't posted anything is because all of the stuff that I had been working on, I didn't consider fully finished. And in a lot of these cases, it's going to be weird, because I finished one of the models, like 3 of the models are done even with highlights. They're just done in a particular style, but I would still count them as fully finished. But because they have multiple options and I magnetize the models, we're talking like a third-party, you know, night proxy model, I basically, you know, just told myself, like, oh, I don't think that's done, so I'm not going to post it, and therefore I never posted it. And then I did those guys for a tournament, and for the next tourney I needed to do the Silent King for Necrons, who I was only able to get done in like a battle-ready style. So he doesn't have all of his highlights. He's got some, like, technical effects on him. I've done, like, a lot of OSL glow and stuff, but I still don't have all of the highlights, and that might be weird, because, you know, normally you do the highlights and then OSL, but OSL is so easy to apply that I found that if you want, like, stuff to look a little flashier, just do the OSL anyway, and then you can hit the highlights later, and you can just redo the OSL, and it'll look even better. Plus, a lot of the time, the OSL, depending on your recipe for it, might actually obstruct a lot of the highlights in the first place. In my case, at least. Maybe I go a little too hard on it, Lord knows, but... So, as a consequence, basically from, I want to say July onwards, I felt like I didn't finish any models, at least not according to my own kind of arbitrary criteria, and as such, I didn't have anything to post, because I didn't want to post work-in-progress stuff. But I sucked it up, and I figured, you don't have to be perfect, basically, to just be able to post on social media. Stuff doesn't have to be the most amazing, it just has to be good enough, it just has to look a certain way, and if you're just trying to document the journey, rather than, you know, constantly destinations and all sorts of other awesome things that you've achieved, and basically be something that you're not, then you might as well just post everything. So as a consequence, I've posted, well, I haven't posted everything, the Silent King hasn't been posted yet, because I ran out of time before stream, but he will be posted as well. And I'll probably also show off some pictures on Twitter as I link over to my Insta, if in the event that anybody is, like, curious about how I paint stuff and whatnot. But yes, I'll try to be a little bit more active on the Instagram this year for sure. I did find it useful in the past to just, like, document various recipes, and I do like looking at other people's stuff for sure. It's more so that, you know, my own like silly criteria for what I can and cannot post got in the way of having fun with that. And although I think social media might not be the best way to use your time in the year of our Lord 2023, it doesn't change the fact that it does have certain benefits, and you can definitely use it for inspiration purposes. And I mean, hell, the thing that I did before I got super deep into this project was I looked at 1 million Sons of Behemoth pictures. I think I mentioned before that I'm pretty sure I've scrolled through every single, like, post that was tagged Sons of Behemoth on Instagram, because I was curious how people were painting their stuff, whether or not people are doing extensive conversions. And I gotta be, like, a little honest with you. This might be very elitistic, and I guess I apologize if I sound like that, but it's coming from a place of goodwill, maybe? I'm not sure. But I was disappointed by the amount of conversions. Very few people actually convert their Sons of Bahamut, apparently, from the looks of it. And I don't really know what to make of that. I find it very, very weird. So, I'm a little disappointed, I guess, in the community, but that's like making it sound very, very harsh. I'm just surprised is all. Like, I get it, the models look decent enough, but why would you not want to make like a unique looking model? That's like priority number one for me. I guess I don't do that in every single case, but with gargants, we've seen it's not that difficult to actually do. In fact, it's fairly easy, turns out. So I'm just a little surprised, basically, is what I'm getting at. Because reposing these guys has not been that difficult. Even what we're doing right now is not at all that challenging. And a lot of the headaches, if you can call them that we're having right now, have more to do with the fact that I have, like, a lack of certain bits from the kit that normally you wouldn't be lacking. So pretty much I feel like there's almost no excuse not to change the way your giants look a little bit if you want to. I guess I'm just surprised more people don't want to. Because large models are fun to convert at the end of the day. Yeah, my man is gonna need some green stuff around the hand as well. I'm also trying to clean everything up here, but we'll have to get the file out to smooth it all out. Now, do we want to leave that there? I guess maybe we don't. There's a section of the ropey bits from the net here that kind of like mush into his palm texture, which obviously normally makes sense because that's where they would be, but in our case it's not going to be there, so it doesn't really make sense for it to look like that. I think the solution is going to be to file it down more than anything. I'll try to cut away the majority of the detail, and then, you know, we'll do the rest with a nail file. Okay, that might be good enough. Might be good enough. Let's actually start cleaning up, because this looks hideous right now, and I want it to look better. So this is going to be hand number one. The other hand is probably going to be even more involved, and I'm a little scared of it, but we'll see. Give me just 1 second, I'll hydrate. Thank you for your patience. We're right back in it, just filing away. But I was saying that the other hand is probably going to be a little bit more involved, simply because it's made up of multiple pieces. So the thumb is just going to need a cleanup. His 3 fingers will probably just need a little bit of cleaning up. But this part of the model is going to be exciting. It's a weird little piece. But we'll do our best to clean it up, and once all of that is done, we'll probably actually have to do the arms. So if we have to do some green stuffing tonight, then we'll do it. You know, if that's what it comes down to, if we've reached that point. I wouldn't say that we've been dreading it, it's just one of those things where ideally when you get into the green stuffing, there's a little bit of prep work you have to do. So I might put like my screen on BRB and like clean up the plastic shavings that I have here, because we'll probably use this thing to roll a lot of the little green stuffed sausages that we'll need. And I don't want plastic shavings to go in there. We don't really want them to have that plasticky, almost hairy like texture basically. In fact, that's kind of what we'd like to avoid. I'll also need like some sculpting water that'll probably get tainted by the activator of the green stuff. Just normal things. Normal sculpting things, obviously. It's fine. I do have access to gloves now as well, so I guess we could try sculpting with the gloves on, and that wouldn't leave fingerprints, I think. So that could be exciting. Could be pretty neat, actually. We also gotta clean the bottom here. Almost forgot. Whatever gap fill solution we end up going for, we're gonna need a lot of it on everybody, but especially this lad, I think. He's gonna have a lot of little gaps and places that need like smoothing over desperately. It's a little better looking now. Let's try to do the other side too. The actual rest of the fingers. Currently holding on to nothing now that we've cut away the entirety of the net, but eventually holding like a giant rope, hopefully. I do think the idea for this guy is good. We'll just have to see if we can nail the execution. But for the time being, we gotta believe that we'll be able to, right? You gotta believe in yourself so that you can actually do stuff. I don't think it's getting any better right now than this currently, and that's okay. Let's see if we can actually glue this together. The thing I'm scared of is how we're gonna like drill the actual, you know, part in the hand. But I think we'll probably need like a little hand Dremel for that, which I don't have access to right now. I'll probably have to like borrow one from work, which is what I did last time when I was magnetizing some of the models that I posted today. But that's okay. Should be able to get it for like a weekend. But then I'll have to find the time on a weekend to actually work with the stuff. Although if I was gonna get that... I mean, there are a bunch of other stuff I still want to magnetize. That's the only thing I'm considering. Maybe I would want to make it a nice hobby weekend where I also do that. But it would be better to do that when the weather is a little nicer. To maybe actually work outside. Not just for motivational purposes, but because the other stuff I have in mind, the other stuff I'd like to work on is resin. And resin dust is highly toxic. Like, plastic shaving / dust is obviously not that good for you in the first place, but resin dust can absolutely fuck you up. So don't inhale it if at all possible. That's the hot tip of the day. Don't inhale resin dust. And previously I was working with the resin dust in my room, which again is not a good idea, but what I was able to do was I wore a mask and I ventilated the place, and then I like cleaned it up, still wearing the mask and everything, so I think I'm okay. I think I'm okay like that, but if at all possible, I don't want to have to do that again in the future. Like, do it in the same style. It was not pleasant wearing a mask and working with like a drill tool essentially for 6 to 8 hours. It's not exactly like fun. The results are fun, but it becomes irritating a lot, actually. I guess it's still better than inhaling that stuff, though. So that's the price you pay for safety. Alrighty, so we're just cleaning the other thumb that he has for the time being. It's the easy part. We'll then clean the fingers and maybe shave off some of the unwanted detail. There's like a little piece of rope coming through there, for example, that we just genuinely don't care for. So I'm going to cut away that piece immediately. It's gone, and now we'll actually get the screw gates and all the various little imperfections on it. we're not gonna file these down just yet. I will keep them separately, just to remind myself that they're not completely done. But we'll file them together with the other part of the hand that we still gotta work on. Let's see. Interesting screw gate placement. But I guess it didn't interfere with the detail here, so that's maybe a pretty good thing. Yeah, he also has like partial fingerprints on these fingers. I mentioned it before, it's very interesting that they went to all that detail. I think it's cool that they did that. They didn't have to, but they did. So this is already basically, like, it exists. And I'm guessing it would go something like this. Which looks super weird right now, but I'm sure it'll be okay later. Was that the cap of our glue? I think it was. Yeah, I did find it, thankfully. Back in the store days, I kept losing the cap of some of these plastic glues. So the solution I did at one point, I just got tired because it's white, sometimes like semi-transparent. It's pretty hard to find if you drop it down. So what I did in one case was I straight up took the cap while it was still on, like this, and I basically just like dipped it into some like bright green paint. And obviously it chipped as I kept using it, but when I dropped it, it was still much easier to find it. So it kind of worked in the end. So let's look at this briefly here. So it would go like that, and then this would go like that. It's a very clever way of building these fingers and this hand. It's absolutely fantastic, except we're definitely not gonna, you know, have him hold this thing. As it turns out, that's not what we're doing. Let me see if this is supposed to have like a different way of going in there. I think so. Is it really like that? Oh, it's like that. Alright, I got it. So this is how it would look. It's not going to look like that, by the way. I can pretty much guarantee you. I guess if we wanted to, it could. If we really wanted it to, it could. So this is the part where we gotta do a lot of very weird dry fitting. And I don't think a lot of this will show up on camera, unfortunately. So you'll have to excuse me. Like, I guess that could maybe still be believable. It was like that. It just fell apart entirely. Just not what you want to see. The downside of this is we kind of have to decide before, you know, we glue everything together whether or not we want to go with version A or version B, because one of them is mutually exclusive. Well, both of them are basically mutually exclusive. So it could look like that. It could look like that. But that kind of doesn't... Yeah, that doesn't really make sense. It'd make more sense to do it like that. Yeah, I think we're gonna cut away the actual club part in this. It's the only way I see going forward. It's gonna make this significantly more difficult for us in a lot of ways, but I think that's how it's gonna have to be. So let's go. Let's do the easy cut. I'm gonna try to cut this so that maybe the rest of this bit can remain intact, because it's a pretty cool skull ornament at the tip of his weapon here, and I feel like maybe we could use that later. Especially if we can also free the other side of it. Like, that could look pretty nice. If nothing else, we might use it just as like a trophy that he has. So I'll put that to the side. Let's see. Clean up this while we're at it. Okie dokie. Was there a sprue gate? There was, but now we can get rid of it. And we have. Wonderful. Alrighty, so, I mean, hey, we'll have to file it down. So far that has gone okay. So this is going to be the more exciting one for sure. Again, I'm going to try to make, like, clean cuts over here. Because if we could get away with keeping this intact, I'd be pretty happy. Alright, so there's an argument to be made that we should use a saw for this. But I'm too committed now. I'm just gonna do it with brute strength. Hopefully our blade doesn't snap. It hasn't yet, so... Okay. Have we almost cut through? I think almost. Oh, I think we did it. We've largely done it. Alright, so it's nearly off. It is completely off. Wonderful. So we've been able to save that skull. I'm gonna look at something real quick. Give me a moment. Let me make another cut. I'm getting a little distracted here, but I am curious how this would look. Now let's not make that cut. That's pretty involved too. We'll do that a little later. I would just like to dry fit this in a location. Yeah, it could be a fun little bit. I'm happy that we were able to save it. We could immediately start cleaning up this side while we're here. Bottom of his hand, basically. Don't know how deeply we want to cut into that. Let's just leave it for the time being. And once it's all getting glued together, after filing it down, we'll figure out whether or not that piece needs to be there. I assume it's not really gonna be in the way. It's kind of a leftover piece from something else. So question is, do we switch to a saw? I think we do switch to a saw for this. For the rest of this. We were fine getting through that one little segment, by and large, but at the same time it did take a lot of effort, considerable amount of time, and it was approximately like 2 centimeters, probably less, and then we have like another 4 to 5 centimeters and then another 2. So if we just take the same amount of time, it's not worth it, basically, with a knife. Whereas with the saw, I think it's maybe going to take the same amount of time, but it's going to be more convenient. And there are no bits left on this that we kind of care about, so we can just like slice away at this with impunity, which is what we'll do. Yeah, that's significantly faster, as it turns out. So the top has already been sliced off, and now comes this little part. Nice. Alright, that went super nicely. Super smooth. Immediately disassemble the saw. Put all the components back where they belong. Pretend to have some semblance of order. And I mean, we still gotta clean this part up, so we'll use our hobby knife for that before we, you know, actually start smoothing things out and filing them down and all that good stuff. And so far, this hasn't been that bad, actually. I expected a lot worse. So I am pleasantly surprised. Alright. This is going to be a little annoying, figuring out how to clean this little leftover piece. We obviously weren't able to cut close enough to it as we would have preferred, because it's not like a completely straight thing, it's more of an organic hand piece. But, you know, we can shave down the rest with the hobby knife. Through all this hobbying, my thumb certainly has seen better days, I can tell you that much. But again, those are the... That's just a part of it, you know? It's part of the price we pay for greatness. At least that's what I'm going to pretend is the case. My god. It's just some thick plastic over here. It's not that difficult to cut away, though, now that there's only a little bit left. Okay. Hold that thought. Try to remember that. Good God. Can't see nothing from this, I'm pretty sure. Because it's just like slightly bigger than my own fingers. Finicky work here. But we're mostly done. Okay, start smoothing things out on this while we're ahead. Just going down around the sides, basically, at all the various pieces that we've cut off. So apparently also one measly little screw gate on this. So we have now eliminated that. And let's see. I need to check on one thing I'm curious about. Okay. We're good. So, right now I'm still just continuing cleaning up this hand. We'll go back to all the other bits in a second, and we'll probably put them together. Let it cure briefly. In the meantime, we'll jump back in to this other one. After we apply the glue, though, I might take like a short break to refill my water, because I'm kind of running out. But we're still a couple minutes off from that. I'm just giving you an early heads up about my plans here, basically. Alright, so that's about as clean as it's going to get for the time being. This piece had almost like nothing on it, especially after we cut away the majority of it, so very easy, nice and easy, in fact, one could describe it. We're already onto the thumb, onto my thumb. And there it goes. Again, not a lot of meat on those bones. I doubt we'll have a lot to do with the fingers either. Yeah, not a lot of mold lines over here. Once we put things together, we'll see like how different everything is. Remains to be seen how that will go. So I think that's supposed to go like this. Now, I guess the question is going to be, you know what, we'll build parts of this structure here. Because some parts of it we know for a fact are going to be assembled because we know how they're going to go together. And a lot of the other parts, such as the actual fingers, we'll have to wait a second to see how they're going to match up to the rest of it, because I basically need to see this hand along with the other hand to see how they're gonna kind of interact with one another. Because we don't just want to build this to, you know, in like a holding nothing position. It doesn't really make sense to do that, you know? In fact, it makes no sense to do that. So let's not do that. Instead, let's see how this would actually go together with his other hand in the position that we've shown. Once I have glued these together, I'll show you what I mean. I kind of mimicked and mimed the position earlier, but I'll show you what I mean in but a brief moment. Just gonna want to glue his thumb on. Hopefully it can still hold on. It's missing a lot of the normal points that it would have to contact. Because normally this would be right next to the body of the club. And the club isn't there anymore. We cut away most of it. I'll also try to glue these halves of the hands together. Because again, like these halves would be together in the first place. Let's see how this goes together. It's definitely weird. You can very clearly tell there's a lot of unintended negative space that we're working with here. But it's mostly together now. Yeah, so outside looking in, I'll try to like show you what this is looking like. So this is the hand, the left hand. Right now. It looks kind of complete. Let me turn it around to show you kind of the more weird looking version of it. So the inside of it looks terrifying and strange. Look at that. It would normally be holding a giant club. So there's a lot of negative space that normally would not be there, obviously. For better or worse. But it's okay. It's okay, I think. So this is our other hand. And as I suspected, if we want to have this like interact kind of in the way that we want it to, then we're gonna have to change some stuff. For sure. He's almost gonna have like a holding a pistol position, weirdly enough, based on what we're looking to do here. But let's have this set for a brief moment here. Give me a couple brief moments. I will pop you on over to the Be Right Back screen and refill my water, maybe go to the bathroom, and I will be right back. We'll have these things cure in the meantime, and then we'll get started on doing some more cleaning and maybe some more dry fitting. And I might also prepare the green stuff, you know, shenanigans that we might have to do. So give me just 1 second. I have returned. Thank you for your patience. Let me switch the screen back on. So, I refilled my water, among other things. Didn't do a lot of prep for the green stuff, because I figured if we get to that, then it'll be more involved than what I have in mind currently. So, let's look at this briefly. So kind of the position we have in mind. Arms outstretched. I'm mostly trying to keep my hands in frame for you to see. Not like that, it's like not like a pistol grip kind of thing, but like this more so. Kind of like reinforcing his grip on the rope. So he has the one hand that's gonna go like this in his case. In fact, yeah, it's like that in his case. And he has the other hand that's like kind of like that. So we're gonna have to move the thumb. And also, we're gonna have to move everything, basically. The short version is we're gonna have to move every single thing, the way I see it right now. Which isn't so nice, but it is what it is. And I mean, the end result is hopefully gonna be worth it. Let's see the dry fitting part of this here. Yeah, we're gonna let these cure for the time being. Oh boy, we're entering into troubled waters for sure with this particular conversion now. I think it's safe to say. But we're gonna have to figure it out. We're gonna have to figure it out. Is there anything else that we could interact with that would be, like, you know, helpful for us in any way, shape, or form before we do this? Not really. I'm basically just asking in a much nicer way if there's anything I can still do to procrastinate working on the arms, basically. Which I'm a little scared of. In case you couldn't tell, I'm a little scared of trying to, you know, put these back on, because they're not going to have a whole lot of leverage, and there's going to be a whole lot of other issues that we see. So this is the part where we consider, I'm looking at the head here, and also the bell on it, which I still find really, really funny, by the way, but we'll decide in the end if we end up going for it, like placing it on there. I'll try to see if I can show you. I just find it really, really funny, is the thing. But let me see if I can show it to the camera. It's a little bit harder now because he's missing both shoulders, so you have to excuse me. Like this. So, I don't know, man. I think this is, like, hilarious. Look at that. I wanted to cover, like, just enough of his head so that his teeth are still visible, and it's just kind of, you know, put on top of him as a helmet. I think it would look really, really funny. So we'll see if we end up doing that or not, but I like it. I dig it. I dig it a lot, actually. Alright, so would we be better off gluing the head on, actually? Or are we better off leaving that till later and trying to figure it out? Now, I think it might be best if we actually glue it on, to be honest. And it's a controversial opinion, to be sure. But it's hard to dry fit like this. But the reason I think it might be best if we do that is because it'll allow us to potentially also use parts of the cowl and cloak as, like, leverage to build the rest of the, like, to glue the rest of the stuff together. And the other thing is, if we, like, fuck up the shoulders, it's going to be significantly harder to, you know, put the neck back on in a nice position. So I think we are going to glue this on. I think we're absolutely going to glue this on, as weird as that sounds. Now the question is, do we want to use plastic glue for that, or just use super glue? And genuinely, I think we might go with super glue for this, because later on it's going to get covered in a bunch of stuff. And I just want to be able to go fast. So I'm just gonna clean up some of the stuff that doesn't look so right to my eye currently. And you know, it's gonna be stuff that later on we're not gonna be able to touch with the scalpel so easily, at least. That looks okay. That looks okay. Most of this looks okay. Okay. Let me at that point use super glue for this, as it'll allow us to actually like get into the fray a lot quicker, basically. Alrighty. Let's go. Let's actually get this done. We'll need a ton of super glue for these for this next section as well. Normally not that big of a fan of super glue for gluing plastic. It works, obviously. It absolutely works. Like, it's already there. But for these kind of situations, when we're just looking for a quick bond, it works pretty nicely. So, with that in mind, it's going to be significantly easier to dry fit parts of this model now. You're still not going to see a lot of it, unfortunately, but you just have to live with that for the time being. Let me check on something real quick. Man, that's gonna be a lot of rebuilding, huh? Yeah, it's gonna be extensive rebuilding right there. Something like that, maybe. You have to excuse me for the silence. I'm just like, my mind is going a mile a minute, trying to figure out how this will actually work. So hopefully the soothing sounds of the music in the background are currently like enough to not, you know, leave you second guessing your very existence. Normally I'm much more of a chatterbox, but this is mentally a pretty involved thing that we're trying to do here. So that could be okay, but it does leave the question. Okay. There's one other thing I was thinking about as I was working on this. Let me look at this. Okay, so there's two little pieces on this arm that I'm going to snip away. There's a little like knot here that would not look like that in the final position that we have in mind. And there's this little rope that I don't even know how it ended up sticking around for so long, but I'm gonna cut away. And later on we might add some of this detail back via sculpting, but they just don't line up with the imagined final position. And similarly here, there's a skull and a couple bones on the other arm that I'm about to slice away as well, for basically the same reason. It's a cool piece of detail. It's actually like looking mighty nice. And if I don't like cut it off too violently, then I'll actually, you know, rescue it, and we'll put it to good use as a trophy or like base detail later on throughout this project. There we go, we haven't misplaced it completely. Because it looks nice, but it just wouldn't be there. Because the rope would be affected by gravity, and as a consequence, the skull would hang differently. So we might like put it back, actually, but we'll put it back later once we've figured out the final position compared to the body. And also the feet. The feet will be a pretty important like thing in that regard. For the same reason, I'm considering slicing off this little thing. And I have. So there was a little strand of hair coming out of that skull, which is also hanging down. It added a lot more to the directional part of it, but like right now, at least it doesn't betray the fact that this piece used to, you know, be in a different position. Okay, so let's try to think about this. There's my bell. The bell might be a useful tool for us with this particular conversion, actually, because it'll allow us to maybe change the way he's looking, quote-unquote, by hiding the face itself, or most of the face. So that will probably come in handy, but we'll see in a second. Maybe not a second, but in a little bit, I would rather say. Could also just like put the arms up like that, and he could just walk around with his hands up like, yeah, praise Jesus. Would be much easier. I can tell you that for a fact. It would be much easier. I have no idea what his hands would be doing with that. What the idea there would be, but could be the direction that we go in. Probably not going to be the direction that we go in, realistically. This is tough. It's actually tough. It's difficult because there's so many parts that have to interact with one another. And it makes it like very, very difficult to see how the hell this would actually go together. Because I have to think about how the fuck he's gonna be holding the chain slash rope, but then we also have to take into account that he's gonna have to have the hands on there. One of the hands is gonna be in a different position than how it would go on there in the first place. Very, very strange. Let's try to figure this out. We can build him a wrist. That's not the problem. Let's like try to do that pose. I guess like the question is, could we keep this as it is? Do something like that. His arm like looks so much longer than the other ones. It's weird. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense for it to be that way, but that's the impression I'm getting. Trying to see if maybe we don't need to do the rope in the way that I originally thought. And then that will allow us to have his wrist be in a different position too. could literally just also have the thing in his hands and it would look super weird. That's an option, I guess. So here's the thing. I think what we're gonna have to do, and it's gonna be strange compared to the other conversions that we've done for sure. I think we're kind of gonna have to take the plunge and start gluing some stuff, especially the arms, so that we can see how the fuck the hands are gonna interact. Because right now we're just prodding along in the dark, and it's not good. It's not good, because we can't really tell what the hell we're trying to achieve anymore. There's too many moving parts, there's too many parts that just fall away and off, and it's just not great. It's just not great. So I think we're gonna have to compromise basically with ourselves and do some more messy gluing than what we normally do. But the reason we gotta make that sacrifice is because otherwise we'll never figure out how this thing is supposed to go together. And I am grateful that we glued on the head and neck here, because it's gonna have parts that can actually hold this already. So this is gonna be messy gluing. And cleaning it up later is gonna be like a pain, but right now we kinda have to do this because it's the only realistic like chance that we have at figuring out how the hell the rest of this is gonna work, basically. It's a huge gap, by the way, over his right shoulder. It's kind of gluing. So this would go here at that point. And it's like that gap over his shoulder is incredible. You can see it from here. Look at this. That's something we're gonna have to fill somehow. I don't yet know how, but like look at that. That's massive. That's a proper cavity. That's insane. I'm hoping I didn't like bite off more than I can chew with this, but we'll see. We will absolutely see. So if we change the position of that thumb, it could work over there. Something like that. Something like that, I guess. So really briefly gonna look at the position of the feet, because I'm curious. Yeah, the best part of all of this is we're probably still gonna have to change the position of the legs, because it's still, I don't think, going to work, but we'll see, I guess. But it's not looking that promising, I can tell you that much for a fact. Which I was kind of hoping we wouldn't have to do just this once. Not gonna lie to you, I was really actually hoping for that. Okay, so We have most of this hand glued together. There's a part of it that is not supposed to be there. There are parts of it that are supposed to be there, but then won't be there anymore. It's all very complex. I am genuinely also confused at this stage. Yeah, because this like way he's holding his hand is gonna be pointless for us. It's not what we want. It's not at all what we want. So his right hand, we've hollowed out perfectly. It's just unfortunate that even with the hollowed out version, you know, it no longer holding the base of the club, the hilt of the club, if you will, it makes very little difference for us because it doesn't improve our situation that greatly, as it turns out, because the fingers are still not in the right position, which makes sense because we never changed the position of the fingers. So it stands to reason that they wouldn't magically pop into the correct position, obviously. It's not really a complaint, it's more just like an observation. So I'd do it like that. Which, funnily enough, we could glue as well. Then I have no idea how the fuck we would go forward from there, if we did. But we might have to. I mean, look, at this point, I will just accept that probably a lot of what we're gluing now will get broken as we're working on it. And unfortunately, I don't think there's any other way of doing this now. Like, normally you'd want to do more structural pieces here, definitely just more green stuff, but we're not going to be getting a chance to do any of that. It's basically go time right now. So I'm just going to hold this here and hope that it sticks. Hasn't yet, and I can see why, because it's not really touching with anything, which is a little scary, because then I don't know how the hell this is going to get glued here. Still nothing? So I say, please tell me that you're touching something on this, like, wrist, because you're eventually going to have to be located here. And that kind of sort of works. It's a big exaggeration to say that it does, but yeah, it does not want to glue. I was worried we'd run into a lot of these problems, you see? Really worried. Please, sir, I really want you to glue. And stop making those dreadful, dreadful sounds. He doesn't want to stop, though. I mean, it might glue. It might glue if we're patient enough, I guess. Problem is, it's right now I can't really rotate the actual arm / hand to see if this is even in a good position. So I don't even know for a fact that this is how we want this. Yeah, it's just not gonna glue, I don't think. I'll see how this would cure like this. Can cure like that, but again, is that how we want it? Might have to be how we want it right now. But I don't like it so much. It leaves a lot of questions about this hand too. And we just broke it off. Well, maybe breaking it off is like kind of an overstatement. Allow me to try to fetch this. I don't think it was ever really that attached, as it turns out, so. Ooh, we've entered the fun part of this, so to speak. So we could do that. How would that look with this hand? That's the sound of me thinking. It's not an amazing sound. Normally I do better when I think less, I think. Instead of a wrist, I could just have the fireball be there, you know? That'd make a lot of sense. Clearly attempting to cope here. Attempting to cope, and it might not work. I mean, we have to figure this out. We absolutely have to figure this out. I have no idea how the hell this is gonna get built. There's so many problematic aspects to this. Even if we add like all the green stuff in the universe here, is it gonna be stable enough to drill into, for example, the hand that'll be attached to it? Is it gonna be just stable enough to add a wrist and then glue that on? These are all things that we don't really know the answer to. A lot of questions lingering in the air, for sure. Oh boy. Trying to figure out, it's making my fucking brain numb. Looking at the feed to maybe have something that makes a little bit more sense. To get us some insight on how the rest of this will go together, but... just don't know if it looks good at all right now. Realistically speaking, he's gonna have arms outstretched. That doesn't even really work. That's probably why we're encountering such trouble. Because left would always overshoot. Obviously, forgot to adjust for the position. Okay, big thinker has to happen now. We gotta think about this pretty hard over here. Because if we just like mount this Yeah, that's always gonna go farther. And that's good that it goes farther. It might not be what we want. We'll be able to make it, you know, be something like we want. Just wonder if this is gonna have the momentum that we want it to. I guess it probably will. It probably will. Alright. Let's do some dumb stuff. Let's glue on this arm right now. I have no idea if there's going to be enough contact points like this to actually glue this. It's mostly fine though from the looks of it. Okay. The gaps on the back are even larger on the left arm if you look at this. As nasty and impossible that sounds, look at that. That's more gap than plastic, as it turns out at that point, but feet are acting a little weird, it feels like. So to speak. Obviously they're not glued or anything, but I'm just trying to figure out some stuff. They're not cooperating. So that's definitely in the way. That hand would go there. Which it can't, based on how we glued this right now. We may have to break things back apart immediately. We'll see in a sec. Yeah, it's not looking good. It's not looking good for the current pose, to say the least. Let me go look at something real quick. I'm gonna look at one other thing. Try to see what we can see. Again, excuse me for the silence, I'm just like in deep thought. Very much trying to figure some stuff out here. I think that probably won't work either. Maybe it could, but it's not like what we originally planned this for. Though we might have to rearrange what we had in mind here. Okay. That could be something. Suddenly that could be something. If only you could stay like that for just a moment. Yeah, man, I am unconvinced. I'm unconvinced of a lot of this. I can tell you that much for a fact. I'm gonna glue the feet on. But I'm gonna use super glue so that, again, if it becomes necessary, you can break them apart, because I really need to see more of this model. I'm uncertain about a number of things, like about him, and I need to have like an idea of what the final position is gonna be like. So let's have him put a little weight on the ankles. So that's how he would look right now. And then he would have this thing, ideally. But would he have that thing is the question. Is it a possibility to put this on with his current pose without it looking really, really bad, is the question. Or do we have to reposition some of the shoulders? Because looking at it right now, he might literally be the only guy that actually works with the basic gargant pose. I'll show you what I mean. So his feet should stay in place now. So we've sliced off both of the shoulders, and we're looking to kind of reposition his body to be swinging something, and we're encountering some difficulty with it. The hands are not yet in place because we don't really see yet how they're gonna go, but he would normally have the plague furnace's fireball, well, we'll paint it as a fireball later, as like a ball and chain style weapon, kind of like there-ish somehow. I feel like if we do figure out the risks, then this could actually work. Looking at it right now, it could positively work, and we might not need to do any repositioning of the legs. His like stumble walking pose kind of works for this, actually. Just, I'm very, very glad to hear that, because if we figure out how to green stuff the rest of the shoulders and such, it's already going to be enough difficulty for us to get through that, I think. I was looking at the ruin set, like the Azerite Ruin Chapel that we have access to here, to see if maybe we could also give him kind of a caber toss style position, but I mean, that could be a possibility, and it might be easier to do with the hands that we have access to now, but I still don't really know if that's how we want to go with it. In fact, I kind of know that I don't want to go like that, you know? It's more so the case. Giving him a giant chain weapon, or in this case a rope weapon, I suppose, would be pretty sweet. And I mean, it's not a bad pose. I wish his head was turned even more. I really do. I wonder if we can maybe fool around with that a little. With the bell hiding most of his face, and therefore changing the profile, but I don't know for sure if that is a possibility. But I think we might be able to. I mean, a little bit, but then we will have to change the position of the feet, so that he's walking where he's looking. Because right now he does do that, but as a consequence it kind of gives away the pose. Man, this is tough. This is absolutely tough. how do we do this properly? Let's just think here. Let's just think for but a moment at least, and try to figure out how this would go. I'm also thinking, would it be easier for us to glue this hand together and then go from there? Since it's kind of, like, only gonna go in one place either way. Would that work? Like earlier we kind of figured it didn't, but maybe we were wrong. Hold up a minute. Man, the other guys are so much easier to build. Just so much easier. Can't really just like glue this stuff in here. Because how the hell are we gonna sculpt the rest of it? Oh man, this is almost like nightmarish right now. How the hell are we gonna do this? Let's see. Why would it be like that, I guess is the question. And why would it be like that? So I'm trying to bash the two hands together in some way, try to figure out like a somewhat realistic looking pose for this, but as you can hear, the problem I have is we bash them together in some way, and the question that arises is why would it be like that? And I don't really have a good answer for that. It's like, well, he's holding it because those are the plastic pieces we have available, but that's not a good answer when you're trying to build a giant, you know? He would just hold his hands the way he sees fit, for sure. He would just hold his hands however he wants. Because, you know, he's a dexterous little boy, obviously. Okay, so... any moment I feel like we're going to break the arms off, and it might be a blessing in disguise as well, because I don't yet know if we're on the right track with them. Yeah, if we just went kind of straightforward with the hands, then we mostly have this thing built the right way. But we would still need to do like a lot of sculpting in the palms. Yeah, man, that's just tough. That's just very, very difficult. I need to look at something. Give me about one moment. Very curious about this. I'm just pulling up a picture here. Or at least trying to. Trying to look at some stuff here. Is it a possibility? Yeah, I don't know, dude. I don't really know. Okay, so that is maybe not gonna work then. Man, we gotta think about this. We've got to actually think about this. I don't think we're gonna get the shoulders to look much better than this, is the scariest thought, perhaps, about all of this. So I keep coming back to this, this set of ruins that we have. And trying to see if, we just broke a bunch of stuff off of here and, like, sawed it off. If we could give him, like, a caber toss style pose. But it would still leave a lot of questions unanswered, because he has this one completely closed fist, which is like, why is it like that? I guess is the big question. I guess it could go like that. And then if we reposition the thumb, he could have like a caber tossing kind of position. Although that actually kind of doesn't work, not with the current position. Okay, let's not do that then. I mean, hey, it's nice to know that we don't have that as an out. It's valuable to do that. It's good to know that it's a hopeless situation. Let me see an image here. How do they actually throw this shit? Yes, it's like fingers clasped together. I mean, that could be something we try to build, but I don't feel like we have the bits for it, you know? So maybe we do? Who knows? Let me look at this for a sec. I mean, frankly, no. We kind of don't. We kind of don't. Okay, how the hell are we gonna do this then? This is a tough question. How the fuck are we figuring this out? I don't know. I don't really know. Man, it's a rough world out there, huh? I'm just baffled and speechless, trying to think how to go about doing what I had planned for this guy. But it's proving to be very, very difficult. I'm sure it's not impossible. Like, I know for a fact that it's not impossible. It's just that perhaps the base pose that we have right now is not really conducive to what we're trying to do. And as a consequence, we're blanking significantly more than we possibly should be. My biggest fear is that it's not really making for an entertaining time here. So it seems like such a cop-out, 2 hours in, but unless I find some way to make this a lot more engaging in any way, shape, or form, then I might literally just call it here, because, and I still will work on this thing. It's just this feels the kind of thing that you'd work on your own time, because it's just not very fun to watch, you know? I'm just sat here with some music going on in the background and not a lot actually happening, because most of the time, compared to the previous builds, where we had a pretty decent idea of what we wanted to do, like in this case we changed our mind, like when we were at 90% completion, but the end result is still a model that looks good, as it turns out. Like this turned out pretty good. It has like a wonderful silhouette, it works rather well, it has a ton of cool stuff about it, and I'm very, very happy with it. Similarly, the War Stomper, I guess, if we want to, you know, use those naming conventions, turned out pretty good too. He still needs to be like dry fitted with his like oversized tree trunk club, so you have to excuse me for that. This might not look the best like on stream. We probably figured out a better way to do this before, but look at that. That looks good though. Like that looks pretty nice. And then you got this guy who we kind of didn't have like such a set idea coming in here in the first place, and now we're really suffering from that as a consequence. It's mostly the hands. It's just like, I feel like the position of the arms could work the way it is now. It's not totally awful. but the hands just really don't sell the pose that we want to actually make. And I don't really know if there's a very easy way of fixing that, you know? Because we don't have any other hands. We have, we have some Troggoth bits that we could use, but I don't think they would improve upon this. Because all the Troggoth bits that we have are also, like, all the hands for the Dankhold Troggoth are closed. And I don't actually think that, the Raka Troggoths have big enough hands to act as like a substitute for this. It certainly doesn't look like it from here, and I kind of remember the size of those hands as well. They're much smaller. They're better suited for the Man Crushers, for sure. And in fact, I have used some of them for Man Crusher conversions. But we don't really have any other hands right now for these guys. And like I said, the only other source that we have is more ideal for either an unarmed kind of thing, or maybe like drilling a weapon in there. I guess the question we have at that point... The other problem is that the arms themselves kind of cue you in on how this would go, because of his visible musculature. So you can kind of like see like a forearm muscle group here on his body. So like rotating the wrist isn't necessarily going to lead to the results we want. I'm just going to hold him here for you to see. But like, it's not an elegant pose, is it? That's kind of the problem I have. No matter how I hold it, it just kind of looks like he looks awkward, right? And that's not a good thing. That's not really a good thing at all, in fact. That bothers me. That bothers me greatly. Because all the previous ones, we were able to make really good poses. And it's been looking pretty good. But for some reason, we're finding this very difficult to pull off now. And I'm mad about it. I'm positively mad. Yeah, I think I'm gonna cut my losses while I'm ahead, because I'm gonna continue working on this conversion tonight for sure, but I just don't think this is stream worthy, you know? I think we had some good bits. We did like a nice AOS news show for sure. Accidentally AOS news, actually. We didn't know that it was just basically AOS in terms of the news articles, but I think I'm gonna say that it's over right here for the stream. And I'm gonna try to look at some reference images, maybe look at some pictures of like a hammer tossing kind of thing to figure out some of the poses. Even though he's not gonna be mid-throw, like I need to look at more actual real-life pictures of people just flinging something around themselves, you know, spinning with it. Because I feel like the problem is that his pose right now doesn't work. And we need to like actually fix that before we do anything else. I think we can use the hands that we have access to right now to fix the problems that we have. It's just we gotta nail the position of the shoulders, and I don't think we've done that just yet. So, as a consequence, I will thank you for tuning in. I really, really actually greatly appreciate it. And you know, hopefully I'll do a much better stream in the future, because this was kind of a train wreck in slow motion by the end of it. But thank you for you know, actually sticking around. If you managed to get this far, then really my hat's off to you. I'm not about to rate anybody, I'm just too embarrassed. So instead, I'm going to take us on over to the end screen and do the outro, and I will see you guys later.
Is the safest place to be in the modern home on wheels. Under you is a rigid steel foundation. Steering controls anchored to the frame. Dependable brakes to stop you safely in every emergency. Knee action to keep you steady over the bumps and set you down easy in case of a blowout.
just an ordinary day, ordinary traffic. Yet any number of these drivers are potential killers. Here's one of them. He doesn't look like a killer, does he? That is why ordinary tires are not enough. That is why ordinary tires are not enough.
Let's get out of here before somebody gets hurt.